My neighbor complained about my colorful house, so I took it to the next level. Story. I bought a house in a community without an HOA. I wanted my home to be my home, and that includes making it look the way that I want. I also chose a neighborhood that already has fun, colorful houses instead of just plain earth tones. I finally got to the point where I could repaint my house. I picked a soft peachy color with sage, blue, and soft and dark pink accents. Fun and colorful without being too out there. I think if you Google Cooler's Blue Sage Peach, you'll see a similar palette. My neighbor Paul effing hates it and has been complaining since we started the project. He also made his opinion known that he hates our front lawn. Lots of wildflowers and sunflowers, fun garden flags, a little free library, etc., etc. Each and every time, I've told him that I don't care. Truly, I don't. And I've suggested a few times that maybe he'd be happier in a HOA community that has control over everything and forces people into having earth-toned homes. Paul got angry when I suggested that and said he's lived in his home for 15 years and shouldn't have to move. I told him, okay, well, you'll have to learn to live with a little color. Last weekend, I was putting in pavers that my niece and I had painted together. They're all things like ladybugs, turtles, birds, etc. in fun colors. I adore them, and my niece is so excited she gets to be a part of my home. Paul came over to complain yet again, saying it was all an eyesore, and my niece was here, so I just told him, it's time for you to grow up and get the F over what I'm doing with my house. He got even pissier and told me that I have no right to talk to him this way. Do I know who I'm talking to, etc.? I told him to just go away and get a effing life. If he has so much free time to bitch and moan about a colorful house, maybe he should get a hobby. He stormed off, calling me a nasty piece of work. My niece was cracking up on the side. For the record, no one in my family is uptight. We really don't care about cursing. I know some people still clutch their pearls over it around kids. She's 15, but I'm sure she says worse. Anyway, one of the other neighbors came to tell me that he's been flapping his yap about how disrespectful I am to talk to him like that. She told me that she knows he's a pain, but that he has been in the neighborhood forever and it's worth being nice to him. I don't know. Is telling him to get a life that big of a deal? Am I the a-hole? Response 1. NTA. The house's color scheme sounds gorgeous, something we'd have here in our Inman Park neighborhood. My guess is your neighbor is more upset about the kitschy items in your front yard than the color of your house. Maybe you need some pink flamingos. Reply 1. Paul. It is Paul, right? I want to make sure that I know who I'm talking to. I'm going to make a deal with you. Every time you're over here bitching about my house or yard, I'm adding 2 pink flamingos to the decor. Every week that you go without bitching, I will take 1 flamingo down. If I hear that you've been talking about me to the neighbors. Dukana is coming out onto the porch. Questions? Reply 2. When I was in middle school, I moved into a house whose neighbors were having a flamingo war. One of the neighbors, A, loved flamingos and fun stuff. Neighbor B hated it. They constantly complained and pulled the flamingos out of the grass so they were laying down, eventually escalating to stealing them. Every time, single time, neighbor B did this, A would buy another flamingo. By the time I showed up, A had won and flaunted their victory via 25-yard flamingos and a number of other fun yard decorations that they never heard a complaint about again, though received more than a few glares from B. Reply 3. My neighbor has flamingos that move around their lawn. They also have an old, busted, rusty truck that they decorate with different things year-round. Another neighbor thought it was an eyesore and started proceedings to get it removed. First neighbor gets it registered and puts a license plate on it, and other neighbor can't do anything. This was 10 years ago and still makes me laugh. Reply 4. Do this but also get his name wrong in a different way every time. The other neighbor is also totally wrong. There's no point playing nice if he's coming out the gate as an ass. Also, not the a-hole. Reply 5. Love the flamingos. Hell, I would put a whole flock of them out there. Embrace the tacky, let your freak flag fly, and tell Paul to F right off of your property and don't come back. Hell, add a sign out front that says something like, all welcome but Paul. Response 2, next time he comes by with a complaint, hi Paul, I put some serious thought into your criticisms over my house. I think we could come to an agreement where if you start to pay my mortgage and my bills, then I will happily adjust the aesthetic of my home to your liking. We could start August 1st. Does that work for you? Otherwise, as the person paying the bills here, I'm going to continue doing whatever I want with my property, and will ask you to not approach me or my property again for this matter. Or a simple get effed, Paul. Up to you, either way, not the a-hole. Response 3, NTA? Some people just don't understand when you try to be polite with them, so it is not your fault that you told them to F off. It is their fault. I bet other people would just fall down on their knees and praise this neighbor and do whatever he wants. Yeah, right, and I always am very polite. But if other people do not understand or don't want to understand, I become very rude. This saves me a lot of time in future because these people know what I will tell them, and they don't even try to pull more crap on me, as it just doesn't work. Reply 1. I have such a pet peeve of people being rude, then getting completely incensed when you match their energy. He expects to come talk down to someone for their house choices, but imagine if the roles were swapped. He would never put up with that. Some people never learn to not dish out what they can't take. Reply 2, I bet my very last French fry that this is the kind of dude who went ballistic during the pandemic when restaurants went takeout only because he couldn't harass waitresses for a few months. Reply 3, maybe that's what should happen. Stand in his yard and be like, so, you're gonna keep your house this shade of gray? Wow, that's boring. Reply 4, this is my downstairs neighbor to a T. He is the rudest man alive, but would perish from the disrespect if he was ever spoken to like that. Yesterday, he was screaming because a teeny tiny bit of water dropped close to, but not on his uncovered patio. We live in an apartment. You'd have thought it was toxic waste. Today it's raining and I'm having to hold myself back from knocking on his door to see if he's okay. Since a couple of water droplets was a heart attack, I have to assume rain has murdered him. Reply 5. Exactly. At what point is the fact that he's being consistently disrespectful to you matter? In the words of 5-year-olds everywhere, he started it. Response 4. NTA. He comes harassing you and you need to be nice? Riddle me that one. If the neighbor who is suggesting you be nice has any suggestions on how to keep this blowhard out of you face/property, that would be more helpful than, kids, it's both your fault advice. It may take 2 to fight, but he is the only one creating the situation. You can't walk away, it's your house, so he is actively seeking conflict but is offended that he is called out. You do you and you are not the a-hole. Reply 1. Yep, if it was worth it being nice, he wouldn't be in OP's face all the time, and the neighborhood wouldn't know he's a pain, not the a-hole. Reply 2. I would have responded to the it's worth being nice to him with the question if, really, how? How is it worth it? I doubt that there is an answer that the neighbor could provide that would actually be worth what being nice really means here. Because just politely nodding when he's in OP's face yet again probably doesn't count. I doubt anything less than completely redecorating the exterior and yard would qualify, which is not being nice. It's giving into the demands of the neighborhood bully. And it doesn't matter what sort of things the would-be neighborhood dictator does for people that appease him. Having to kowtow to his landscaping and home decor whims in order to curry his favor is a net negative situation. Reply 3. I think the other neighbor is looking for the easiest way out. They're probably tired of having to listen to Paul carry on and on about the situation, which if it wasn't this, it would probably be something else. So, rather than also tell Paul to F off, they're trying to pressure OP into falling in line. There is a very old post on here about not rocking the boat that I still quote to this day. It was specifically about MILs, but I really feel like it applies to so many situations. When someone tells you not to rock the boat, they're actually telling you that you need to help steady the boat to keep it from sinking, as there is a crazy person jumping up and down and all around. It's way easier to ask someone to keep the boat steady than to try to tell the crazy person to stop jumping around, which in turn just teaches the crazy person that the more they jump around, the more people will help steady the boat. Edited to add, I found the link. Reply 4. I'm kind of blown away by the idea that he's lived here forever if it's really only 15 years. A lot of my neighbors have been in their places for 40 plus years. We're still some of the newer people in the area almost a decade later. Reply 5. Where I grew up, 15 years would be the new kid in the neighborhood. We had multiple generations going back. Just divide the property in half and build another house for the kids. Response 5. NTA. There was a Reddit post where the OP painted it yellow, and as soon as she went out of town, her neighbors contacted a company to paint it neutral. Huge drama happens after police called, etc. So maybe put up some cameras, haha. He sounds like he is a grumpy old man and does need a life. If he was my neighbor, I'd kill him with kindness, as my mama used to say. It is better to have neighbors who look out for each other than scheme against each other. Reply 1. I think the killing him with kindness ship sailed when he didn't let it drop, added more things to complain about, and continued to harass OP in their own home. Polite interactions with your neighbors are a must, of course, for a drama-free existence. But too often one party has zero control over that. Reply 2. Sometimes kill them with kindness is viewed as weakness and as a permission to keep harassing or even escalate their behavior. Reply 3. Very good point. There are certain relationships and personality types that approach is great for, and it definitely makes you look good to other people, but it very rarely has more benefits than costs. Reply 4. As an aside, killing someone with kindness does not always work the way a person hopes it will. I once gave my father this advice when dealing with an angry neighbor at his elderly person condo. Surprise twist that I did not see coming, sometimes the kind person ends up getting killed. Reply 5. That guy must have a lot of spare cash if he is willing to pay to have his neighbor's house repainted. Response 6. I have hated every pink house I've ever seen, even Matty Peach. It's the worst color. You can't paint a house other than purple. That being said, it's your house. The end. Reply 1. Personally, I think stark white with black trim is the worst color you can paint a house. Everyone's got an opinion. Reply 2. NTA. Growing up in Florida and visiting Key West, all the houses had many colorful schemes, and guess what? Many ornery older folks moved down there, claiming it's a breath of fresh air. People walk to their own beat. Snowbirds are the best birds, etc. This neighbor is an unhappy person. Nothing. And I mean not O-to-H-I-N-G will make them happy. Ever. His happiness is seeing you just as miserable as him. Period. Reply 3. That's like the guy on Nextdoor app bitching about the kids at the park being noisy on the weekends. Why the F did you buy the house by the park if you didn't want to hear noisy kids? I got mine here specifically so my kids can go to the park whenever. Reply 4. Exactly. I love my little black goth shack, but I think yours is great because you love it. Why can't others just let people enjoy their yums? Reply 5. Like all black? There's someone a few streets over who has that with a purple door, and it looks awesome. Not my thing, but I love seeing it when I walk by. Response 7. NTA. Just because he's been in the neighborhood forever doesn't give him any rights. It's not a seniority system. If he doesn't like, he is cordially invited to pound salt up a hole. Get a camera because this is the kind of cat that will vandalize your yard. Reply 1. All I can think is 15 years is forever for him. My partner's parents have lived in theirs for 41 years. I guess they make all the rules. 0.15 years isn't even enough time to raise a child to adulthood. I'd hardly call that forever. Response 8. NTA. Your neighbor is deluded to think his opinion matters. It's your house, and you're right to decorate as you choose. And isn't it great to not have some HOA dictating to you? Tell him his unsolicited criticism is inspiring you to consider fluorescent orange and bright red for your next color scheme. Response 9. NTA. Tell your neighbor if he would like to have the right to dictate paint colors or landscaping choices. He is happy to make you an offer on the house at 3x market, so he can buy it and then it will be his property and he can do what he likes with it. But since it isn't his property, he can keep his opinions to himself because you don't care what he thinks. Next time he steps foot on your property, inform he is trespassing and not welcome. Involve the police if necessary. Response 10. If he has so much free time to BH and moan about a colorful house, maybe he should get a hobby. Exactly. His other choices are to live with your house colors or move. It sounds like he'd fit right into a HOA neighborhood. Response 11. NTA. If he starts up again, I recommend going the same route as a 4-year-old. Just keep asking him why. You mentioned the neighborhood has some colorful houses already. Why does yours bother him so much? Why do these colors bother him in particular? Why does he have the authority to police the neighborhood like this? If he can't internally process his emotions like an adult, make him miserable when he lashes out. Reply 1. Do you think it could be politics? Something about OP's description, EISP, the little free library, plus the tenor of the grumbling makes it sound like their house might look like a happy rainbow sunflower liberal, and maybe that's why he can't bear to gaze upon it. Response 12. You explained nicely. Not once, not twice, but thrice, and probably more often. This time he was ruining your niece's fun project. He deserved to be scolded. Also, I giggled when I read your response. Edit. Forgot my verdict, not the a-hole, of course. Response 13. You know what? We all have different tastes. I'm not actually a huge fan of your color palette or gardening choices either. But who TF cares what I think? This house is yours. You intentionally bought in a non-HOA neighborhood so you can express yourself through your home. Your neighbor is just OTT. I get that people are like, oh, we should respect the old guy. But you didn't drop the F-bomb on him the first time he came over to complain. You dropped the F-bomb after a series of encounters that together I think add up to something like harassment. Not the a-hole. Response 14. NTA. As long as your home and yard are well maintained and within code, not at risk of attracting vermin, a fire, or falling into his yard, your neighbor really doesn't get a say in how you decorate. It's too bad he decided to start off on such a sour note. But you are right. His attitude is not your responsibility. Response 15. NTA. I can picture your house. We have several in our town with similar color schemes. Usually old Victorians with ornate woodwork on them. Really lovely. Paul is only important in his own mind. Response 16. For the love of all that is good and holy, neighbors. Ugh. I've got one set who neither mowed nor moved their waste wheelers off the curb for 10 months straight, then threatened the mowing contractor the city hired. One couple who verbally accosted me across the fence twice in 2 weeks over his paranoia about my security cam, that is perfectly legal and not pointed at him, and actually threatened to put in a privacy fence if we didn't move the cam. Please do, dude. Truly, we'd appreciate it. And one guy with 2 mastiffs who replaced a privacy fence in 2 hours flat with no cement footings, didn't sink the post deep enough, didn't take it the whole open span, and closed the gap by leaning a pallet against it. Idiot's gonna idiot, not the a-hole. Response 17. NTA. So he can be disrespectful to me, complain to me constantly about my home and what I am doing with it, but I am not allowed to say my piece after continuous bitching to me? Never once nice to me? Nope. Sorry, neighbor, you may want to live that way. I do not. The only way to keep the peace to him is to do what he wants, and that will not happen. I am good with that. Response 18. NTA. If your neighbor wants to be nice to him while he's rude as hell, that's her choice. She doesn't get to force that choice onto you. We, as a whole effing society, need to stop forcing everyone to cater to the biggest a-hole in the group for the sake of keeping the peace. If an a-hole is gonna a-hole, we get to tell them. Reply 1. Peace is really only peaceful for the loudest a-hole. For everyone else, it's a facade and a lot of walking on eggshells. Response 19. NTA. If this were how you reacted to his first complaint about your house, then you would be the a-hole. But it sounds like he's just outright harassing you at this point. We're supposed to respect our elders. No a-holes here. Respect is earned, not given. Reply 1. No, even then he wouldn't be the a-hole. Neighbor has no right to complain about OP's house, even once. Response 20. NTA. Your neighbor is a nasty AH, though. Good for putting him in his place. Laugh at any other neighbor that says you were disrespectful to him. Ask them why living here for years makes it okay for him to be an AH Nazi to you. Then ignore them. Make sure to get cameras and be quick to call the cops on him for trespassing and especially vandalizing your house and yard. If he continues, you could also put up a sign or something with an FU finger on it that can only be seen from his yard or window.